Yo, what is going on, guys? Serious here. In today's video, we are starting the sixth part of the GSC scripting series. We are also continuing our menu-based tutorial. If you have not seen the previous videos, go ahead and watch them because you're going to need the code that we made in those videos for this video. Also, make sure you have the most update version of my utility library. The link will be in the description. The only thing I've added today is the color function. This is going to be a lot better than the built-in well, not built-in, but utility RGB function that comes with Infinity Loader, because this is going to handle the opcode emission to make sure your project doesn't inflate. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get into what we're doing today. The plan is for us to set up some options and a slider. We're not going to be able to use the slider yet, and the options are going to be basically just placeholders, but the goal is to kind of get the menu layout done so that we can start working on the back end. We're going to need some new defines, but first I'm going to go ahead and convert these into using the color function. We do color 0, that is black, and then if we do color 0xFFFFFF, we get white. If you are not used to this formation, you probably may have seen it in the HTML color code format. It is just hexadecimal. You can use the Google color picker. You just search online color picker, and you should be able to get this output just fine. This is going to be a lot more useful than the vectors that are used inside of this game, so hopefully this is useful. We're going to add a couple new defines, actually 3 new defines. Let me go ahead and pull up my notes real quick. There we go. Define mSlide shader is equal to white. This is going to be the shader that we use for our slider. Define mSlide color is equal to color 0xFF0000. This is the red color because it's got full red and then no green and no blue. You can obviously choose whatever color you want. This is just the color that I want to use. Define mSlide alpha is equal to 0.8. This is going to be the transparency of the slider. I like 0.8, but you can choose whatever you want that goes good with your color. We're going to need to go ahead and pre-cache shader for the mSlide shader. This is because if you use a different shader, you're going to make sure to basically pre-cache it, because otherwise the shader will not show up in game. Even though we're using the same shader, this is just set up so that if you were to release your menu base, somebody else would be able to just edit up here and wouldn't have to deal with this at all. So let's go ahead and start working on creating the options. We're going to be using arrays today. Let me go ahead and find the function. Here we go. We want to go to set menu open, and we want to go ahead and create a new array. Self.mText is equal to an array. Basically what this means is that it is creating a list of items. So you know how normally in a variable you have one variable name equals one value? Well, this is going to allow you to use one variable name and have multiple values under it. So let's go ahead and set up a for loop. A for loop is a special kind of loop that is generally used with arrays, but it can be used in a lot of situations. For I equals 0, setting the I variable to 0. I is less than 10. So basically, this is the condition, like if you had a while loop. So if you did while I is less than 10, it would continue while I is less than 10. It's the same situation here. This is just saying while I is less than 10, keep going. I++ means set I to I plus 1. I equals I plus 1. Just setting that there for a comment in case you wanted to come back and look at what this is doing. This is going to basically execute 10 times, and we are going to say self.mText I. That is saying we want to use the I element in this array. Basically, just imagine this is a number. So mtext 0 is the first element, mtext 1 is the second element, mtext 2 is the third element, etc. is equal to, and then we're going to go ahead and just copy paste our old text because we're going to reuse some of it. We're going to change this to be option plus I. This is just a placeholder. When we actually get options, we're going to replace this with the value of the options we're using. We have negative 110 for the X position. For the Y position, we're going to use 60 plus I times 25. This is just something that I set up before the recording. I kind of eyeballed it, and it looks pretty good. You can mess around with it if you want. The I times 25, this is basically the spacing per option, and this is the base position. This is the Y position of the element, if you remember. We're going to change this to be 1.5. We want to use a 1.5 font size. Again, you can choose it custom, but you're going to have to adjust this if you do, so I would just leave it alone for now, unless you know what you're doing with the menu base already. We're going to leave the text color in alpha, and we're going to change this sort to be 2. We want it to be on the third layer, because the third layer is above the background and the slider. The slider is going to be in the second layer. That should be good for our text. Now we want to make sure that we destroy it, and we could use another for loop, but I want to use a for each loop because it will introduce another concept to you. For each text in self.mText text destroy. This is going to take every element inside of our self.mText array and destroy it. It is the same thing that we have declared up here, so it's just going to destroy basically all of our options. Let's go ahead and do something to be safe. If self.mText, if is defined. This is just making sure that our mText array actually exists before we try to iterate it. Otherwise, we would freeze. This is just making sure that self.mText exists. I don't believe we've used isDefine before, but isDefine is just checking that this is not, basically that this value exists. Let's go ahead and check our syntax and inject. Hopefully everything goes well. Okay, let me double check the syntax. We're all good. Let's go ahead and start it. Okay. And boom, we've got our options coming up. And when we close it, they go away, which means everything's good. All right, let's go ahead and add a slider now. Self.m slider is equal to, then we're going to copy our icon code. This icon code is going to help us just kind of reuse the shader that we had. mSlide shader, because obviously we want to use the slide shader. We will leave the negative 110 for the X position. We will put 52 for the Y position. We're going to keep the 200 for the width, and we are going to set 20 for the height. Again, these are just things that I have basically eyeballed before the video, and it looks good, so you can reuse this if you want. Otherwise, you're just going to have to play around with what you've got. mSlide color, this is the color for our slider. mSlide alpha, this is the slide alpha. Then we want to set this sort to 1 because we want it to be above the background sort. And we can leave the alignment alone. Let's go ahead and make sure that we destroy it, because if we create it, we need the menu to also destroy it. So we'll just go ahead and do self-destroy. All right, let's check our syntax and inject, and we should have a slider set up. As you can see, the more you get used to using variables and things like that, the faster things go. We didn't have to re-explain the icon and text function because we used them in the last video, so it's actually pretty fast to go ahead and make our options and slider. As you can see, we've got our slider and options. We'll go ahead and close this and review what we've got today. I know we're moving kind of fast, and I will try to re-explain arrays and for loops and for each loops as we continue through the series, but I just want to go ahead and knock out the basic menu layout today. So, again, we are creating an array of text elements. We are going from 0 to 10, and setting up 10 options here in our array. Then we are creating a new shader for our slider, and we are destroying all the elements in the slider whenever the menu is closed. We have our defines up here with our colors. Just as a quick example, we'll go ahead and try to get a purple option set up. So purple is going to be mostly blue and slightly red, so we'll do something like, let's say 7F and FF RGB. And we'll see if we can get a purple slider. I haven't tried this yet, but we'll see what we get. This is just to show you how easy it is to basically swap the colors and shaders and things like that whenever you've got the base set up this way. And we got a purple slider, which is pretty cool. So yeah, this is really important. This kind of setup is really important if you plan on releasing your base whenever you finish with it, because you want people to be able to edit it that easily. Not have to really worry about the code too much. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Tomorrow we will be setting up the slider to actually work correctly, and then we will be working on getting the basics of our menu set up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions or comments or concerns, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.